So let's see how we go. Listen, how many of you have contributed to Drupal? And other open source projects? That's cool, that's great, thank you. So like code, bug reports, sponsored an event. You're platinum sponsors at DrupalCon, you better put your hand up. Thank you. Finland. Right, who does training? Training is really great way to contribute. I mean, even if you get paid, that still counts as contribution. Right, so I think, and frankly, right, we're at a community event now and we're talking with each other and we're trying to help each other be better at doing business and Drupal and stuff. So everyone here in the room, we're all contributing, and thank you all for everything that you do. How many of you contribute to free and open source software at work? And as a formal, defined part of your job? A fewer hands. Okay, all right, but it's all right. So, who's got like a budget for contribution? Curious about this. All right, that's cool. Tell me when you get a cramp in your arm, Boyans. So right now, picture this room. Picture a room much bigger than this. A huge room, full of people, right? You, contributors, it's okay, right? But we're in the minority. I mean, and we're in a very small minority, and this thing called the long tail, you know, whether you're on Wikipedia or whether you're in open source software or whatever, the people who actively contribute are very few, and we have a big impact, and there are a lot of people who come along for the ride, and it's okay, right? And I know that, and I know that we want to, and I know that we're on the right side of this, so part of the thing that might be upsetting me right now doesn't directly, I'm not talking about you, but I just want to tell you one more thing before I jump into the presentation, one more thing that I'm trying to pick apart in my head, right? There's this idea of I don't know, there was a lot of talk around in the community lately about how you should or shouldn't contribute and who should or shouldn't contribute, and one of the points of my talk today is that I want to come to companies and tell them, you know, as a consultant, that there are really sound business reasons to contribute to the projects that you're involved in, but there's no moral case. You don't have to contribute. Nobody has to contribute, right? It's cool. We are just as we are free, because we are free to use the software, right? The first of our 4 freedoms. We are free to use this thing, and everybody's free to use this, and we're really proud. We should be. Like, you don't have to ask permission to use Drupal. You don't have to, like, oh, you know, you're not allowed to use it for right-wing politics, you're only allowed to use it for left-wing politics, or whatever it is that you believe, like, that doesn't count with us, right? So you don't have to contribute, but I suspect that just because you don't have to contribute and just because you're free to use it, it doesn't, I think we're equally free. I think we're equally free to make a case to people who aren't contributing and are perhaps benefiting a great deal from the project. I think the contributing community is also allowed to complain about that, and I don't know what the end effect of that is, but I think we need to think about it. And I'm in my mind, I've been pulling apart the tragedy of the commons. Who knows what the tragedy of the commons is? It's this idea where you know, it's hours of lectures, but basically, if there's a resource freely available to everyone, a logical actor will profit from it at a maximum rate immediately because the future is uncertain and anyone else could get in there and take it first. We have an infinite resource because we're using open source software, right? Like, we build it once and we can use it n times, that's amazing. But we have a reverse tragedy of the commons, because if none of us contributes and everybody decides to benefit from the work of whoever's left contributing, right? At some point, it doesn't exist anymore, and that's hard, right? It's a really hard problem. There's some game theory in here about, like, we could maximize our immediate benefit to ourselves right now by taking and using and getting on with it, but we put the future of the project at risk, right? But if we take a little bit of our time and our effort and our budget to make the tools that we use better, right, then we're ensuring a much better future for the project and a much better future for our group and for our community, for our society, right? So we really, really need to think about this balance of benefits and how long and how much we want to benefit. And it's a really hard problem. These are classic problems across philosophy and community and society for years and years. There's just some context of some things that have been going through my head right now. The cool stuff I want to tell you about is this. There's this guy called Chris Jansen, Legolasbo on Drupal.org. His girlfriend is about to have a baby any day now, so he couldn't come up here. He's done a bunch of research about contribution in developer workflows, and that research turned into conversations between him and I about contribution in companies and how to make that happen. And it's become a really, really interesting thing. We've done this presentation a few times together now. He's done it once on his own. I'm doing it once on my own now. So everybody tweet at Legolasbo. Wish him well for his new baby, please, and say hi from Helsinki. So, now, talking on the code side, so this is what Chris discovered, right? He was doing a bunch of research. He came into a company and they're open source technology and stuff, but he found that there wasn't much contribution happening in the developer area. And who's ever felt like blocked? Like, you know, you didn't know how or you didn't know what to contribute, you didn't know where to start. It's a really common problem, right? Yeah. Yeah, and so Chris did a bunch of interviews with developers. Like, we all want to contribute. It makes sense to us. We're idealistic people. We understand that we're benefiting and we should give back to this thing, right? So Chris found people who felt blocked by a lack of knowledge of how to do this thing, right? Or they felt that they didn't have time because maybe their company said you're not allowed to do anything, it's not a billable hour when you're at work. Or maybe you're just like, oh my, I could never touch the code that, you know, Daniel Vena touched because we're like, you know, oh my God, Alex God is so amazing. I shouldn't mess with his stuff, right? Because that would be terrible, right? So Chris found developers blocked by a lack of knowledge, a lack of time, and doubt about their own skills, right? There are some other factors along the way, like these can be multiplied by problems with the contribution process and other barriers as unclear mandates, as I'm going to talk about. You know, you doubt the quality of your own work, you don't know if you're good enough to do it, right? He found this situation, and then he went on and he found negative catalysts that make this whole situation worse. If my pointer's working, oh, look! So if you don't think you maybe know enough to do this stuff, are you brave enough to ask your colleagues? Like, what if they figure out that you don't know what you're doing? Oh my God! Like, maybe you fear that your job's at risk. That's a genuine. That's terrifying, right? I mean, I still want to have a roof over my head and be able to eat. So maybe that's a dangerous thing culturally in my company. It takes energy that I probably need to be investing in other things. It takes time. I haven't been given time to do this because I don't know what the priorities are around here, so that feeds into that. Maybe scope of projects has been set so precisely that there's no wiggle room to do anything else. So this makes these main areas worse. So Chris thought about this for a while. And he realized that, look, you can unlock people if you tell them how to do it, if you show them where to look, if you give them a tutorial yourself, or, you know, show them the right materials online, or show them, you know, pound Drupal in IRC or Slack now, you know, you can work around their doubts about their own skills, because most of us are good enough to do a lot for the project, right? Compensate for the lack of knowledge, well, I mean, remove the lack of knowledge by teaching people, right? And all of these things start to get better. And once you're able to do something, your skill level improves, right? So it would take less time and less energy to contribute, so that gets improved. Communication with management or with your manager or with your team might clear up the mandate issue about whether you're allowed to do it. And so on, including a definition of done that includes contribution, right? Makes that then part of scope, makes it a sensible thing to do at work. So these are, the green things are all, you know, solutions to these common blockers that Chris found, you know, in the I keep having this vision of this like coding sweatshop in my mind where everybody's like pushing code through these sewing machines. But anyway, you know, so there's some ways that he identified, and he started testing these, to get people where he was working. He was given permission to test some of this out, to get more code contribution happening at work. I want to talk in the next half an hour, really quickly go over this stuff that it feels obvious to have this conversation with this room, but just like, why are we using open source? Why should we contribute? Talk about these roadblocks again, talk about removing roadblocks, and then if we have any time, I suppose we can do Q&A in this on as well. Because I'm very likely to go 5 minutes too long. I can just feel it today, okay? So the other thing that you should know is that green slides, when we do this as a pair, the green slides are usually mine, and the blue slides are usually his. So imagine Chris and I have come in for a couple days of consulting with your company about how to get your open source company to more contribution. I'm going to have a seminar with management types. I'm going to talk with people about company values, what you use, what you believe in, what you do. And I'm going to talk with you about the business values, the business reasons to contribute to open source, okay? And then on the blue slides, Chris is going to talk about some specifics with developer teams. There are plenty of issues and opportunities that we don't include in this presentation. But this is also part of the idea of this, is that this is an ongoing project that we're doing. We're currently doing interviews with people, collecting anecdotes and evidence about, my company contributed this way and we benefited that way. So we sponsored an event and we hired a person and we wrote a library and got a project, and we're looking for systems to measure these benefits. And we're looking to do a lot more with this. So I'm also really interested in talking about it more. So, look, we use open source for some seemingly obvious reasons. They're obvious to us because we've been living this thing for however many years we've been doing it. But look, you don't have to pay money to have the license to use Drupal, right? It has a license fee of 0, which makes our projects cheaper. Because we're using Drupal and we're using a project that has a massive amount of momentum, a massive amount of functionality available to us, we get faster time to market. All of these things feed into a better return on investment. Reduced vendor lock-in. If you don't like working with Acquia, there are companies that provide essentially, I think, more or less most or all of the services that we provide as well. Certainly the essential things are covered by multiple actors. That means we have a viable ecosystem, and Drupal itself passes the truck test. If you don't like who you're working with, you can find someone else to help you out. This is really important. It proves that we're a viable ecosystem, that you can invest in this technology. A single vendor marketplace is then also a single point of risk, right? Great reasons to use open source, great reasons to use Drupal. Then you have this idea, and I'm just talking fast because I want to get, there's a lot to talk about. So here you have like a sort of a map of a typical IT project where you look at the proprietary project, you look at an open source project. Every project is expensive. IT costs money. You always have people working. You always need this sort of stuff. The design, functionality, all these sorts of effort. When we hit here, we start to get these cool differentiators like, well, with Drupal, we always say, you'll get 80% of your project out of the box, and then we'll, work on the special stuff. If you have anything that's niche, anything that's interesting, anything that's different, a major vendor, they might not really care. And if you're the only organization in the world doing whatever it is you do, like, Adobe or Microsoft or even IBM, they're not going to build it for you, right? But Druid will build it for you. Lemon will build it for you. Acquia would find somebody or do it, So we've got this incredible flexibility, and we can invest in a really targeted way. And this also helps our community stay on the cutting edge, because 95% of our community is building applications for clients. And business cases are also 95% non-unique. So everybody needs a Twitter integration. Everybody needs whatever feature. So we can help each other out, and we move really quickly. There are a lot of us. It's our stuff. And with this license fee of 0, we have this concept, build it better, not cheaper, which is a sales trick. But you can invest what you need when you need it, and that means you can hire more people, you can train people to be better, you can add more features to your project. So that build it better model, that basically looks like this. You have this budget of 100 money. My project, the license costs no money, which means I can reallocate, in this case, 30% of my fictitious budget into a better project. right? So that's this idea of, you know, you got 100 grand to spend, let's give you so much more because, you know, we've got so much more to offer. Try not to sell cheaper because, you know, it's a pity. And then, so, we're open source people. Of course we contribute, right? Yes, because we are software hippies. Because it's the right thing to do. Because community comes first. Like, cool, right? Tons of us come from really idealistic backgrounds, and that's really legitimate, and it's right, and it's something that most of us believe in some very strong way that goes beyond what non-technical people really understand about our feelings about this technology, right? But we have strong feelings about it, but it is not a business reason, and your potential client doesn't care about giving back and paying it forward, right? It doesn't pay the bills, it doesn't have really good measurable ROI. And so you need to, and this is what we're talking about today, you know, you need to define business reasons for contribution in your own company, right? Because, for example, you know, contributing raises your company's visibility. It could make hiring and retention a lot easier. It could make you, it could allow you to do business coalitions, right? Drupal shops working together. We don't have any secret sauce, right? We have our specialties. We do things in certain ways, but essentially with open source, we're differentiating on giving great service. On, you know, you like nonprofits, you have great design, whatever it is. So we can work together, we can reduce technical debt a lot faster. There are great reasons to contribute, and those are business reasons to contribute. So Chris and I are thinking about two kinds of contribution roadblocks right now. Strategic roadblocks, so a lack of vision, a lack of policy, and a lack of support for contribution within organizations. That's the sort of management talk that I would have with people. And we're talking about operational roadblocks. Those are things that block contribution on a personal level, on a team level, things like fear and doubt, and a lack of access, and a lack of time, and so on. So, there's this thing called the Golden Circle. There's a TED Talk from 2009, it's Simon Sinek, I can highly recommend this. He talks about this concept of the Golden Circle. TEDx 2009, how great leaders inspire action. So listen, so the idea is essentially, if you start by saying, we're going to contribute, go contribute. So what is red some patches or something, right? It's not terribly efficient. You're probably not going to be able to coordinate it. You're not going to be effective. You're probably not going to be able to measure it easily or determine its value. So the idea is you need to define why you would, in our case, why you would contribute, what you're really, really about, okay? So if you don't know the why, you don't have a unified vision or a unified understanding of how you're benefiting from contribution. And if you don't agree on that, you cannot come to a consensus. Management needs to come to a consensus. We are going to contribute. Yes. Why are we going to contribute? We'll talk about a few of those reasons. Then, in my vision of how this should work, management should come together and say, we understand that we're benefiting from contribution, so we should tell the technical people that this should happen, and you should, and then you might give a whitelist or a blacklist of areas that maybe you can or cannot be part of. You might want to specify a budget or not. Then you say, technical people who know what you're doing, go define a policy. Give me a proposal of how to contribute, right? Because we know why we are. So now tell us how we're going to do it. And once you've got agreement on that, then you can actually contribute. And you can contribute in a meaningful way that you agree from the top down and from the bottom up is meaningful for your organization, helps your project, and helps you have a better business, right? So this talk's also really interesting because it takes this model in some other directions. Chris encountered these real problems in a real medium-sized organization, and he always underscores that the problems, while he believes that these problems are common, the situation that he encountered was specific to that organization, and you need to go and investigate, in each case, what's going on at your house, essentially. So, I don't have time to contribute. I don't know, whoops, hey! I don't know how to contribute. Oh, well, that fits in with our how. I have some doubts. I don't know why we're doing it. You know, should I be contributing to this thing because it's cool and it's what I care about? Is it relevant to a client project? Does that even matter? That needs policy, right? And lack of policy means that we don't know when it's a good idea, and we certainly can't measure it or justify it. So, I have to have the boss talk, and I have to say, why are we here? You're open source. You know, you without contribution, right? None of this would even exist. You wouldn't have a business. That's a pretty good reason to start with. Okay. There's a saying in business about nowadays about never outsource your core competencies, and frankly, I find it astonishing that a Drupal business based on open source would simply ignore the community and ignore the possibilities to engage fully with the technology and just run with it and see what happens. Because like, what if we all voted to turn off Drupal tomorrow? I'm joking. But like, what if we just, okay, there's no more Drupal, right? And all those people who haven't engaged with us and they don't know about the community and they're not contributing, like, do they have a say in that? Like, what if we dissolve the security team and there are no more security patches? What do you do then, right? If you're not engaged in your core technology, what are you even in business for, right? That's a scary vision. My hand waving is much less effective when I have a microphone. Oh. Thank you. So listen. Here's a good business reason to contribute. Let your developers work with the community, come to code sprints, come to community events. You're paying for them to go away, have fun somewhere for a weekend, right? Or go to DrupalCamp for a week or whatever. But you're giving them training, you know, engaging with the best developers that in our technology that the world has to offer. You get better developers back when you've sent them away to community events, right? And there's no way to stay up to date with technologies that's better than being engaged with the community itself, with code sprinting and so on. If you build your reputation as a company, that you have smart devs, that you're doing your part, you can prove that you're experts in your field. Customers are savvy about Drupal now, and it's like, oh, you know about media? Have you been working on the media project? Like, where are your patches in the media initiative? Like, people know about that stuff now. So it's a great way to do marketing for your company, and it's a great way if you have any chance of getting technically savvy customers, right? They know about this stuff, and there are a lot of segments now who know about this sort of thing. Frankly, who looks at GitHub repositories and Drupal.org IDs when they're hiring nowadays? And who doesn't look at any of that and only looks at a resume? Let the record state there were no hands up for option 2. So clearly, people can look at our companies too, and now, like in Drupal, with the way the commit credits are, we can also tell what companies are contributing and what are not. So if you have a reputation as a company that does great work, that's full of smart people, and that encourages contribution, is part of the community, it's a huge bonus in hiring and retention. Chris and I gave this talk in Milan at the Dev Days, and a guy, his hand shot up when we were talking about it. He shot up, he said, yes, this is true. And he said some guy was offered more money than his company was able to pay, but he was told that, you know, he would not be allowed to contribute any code to open source working at that place that was offering him a decently larger amount of money. They were offering, I don't know if it was twice as much or whatever. Anyway, he turned that job down because he wants to work at a company where he can be part of the thing that actually gave him his career. So, great for hiring and retention if you're doing contribution. Reducing technical debt in the product that is bringing you your money is very important. Make Drupal better today, your next project will go better, right? It will also go better for all of us, and we're all doing it at the same time. And we've built up a trust, an investment that we're investing in this thing to do better together. But the more things you fix in the Drupal, the easier every project will become. talking about QA, talking about testing and what have you, it will help you deliver something better every time. And when you fix a patch, yeah, you can admit it. You can. Whoever did that Drupal project with that, like the fix all module, the remove all bugs module, the private patches module, or like you don't have to admit it. Like lots of us have had these in-house like fix our own personal problem modules or the collection of random things modules. We shouldn't actually do that. Like you're maintaining a lot of risk in-house, and you should fix those problems and then export that so that the project gets better. And there's a great business reason, because otherwise you have to go and update those patches every time. You have to do the same thing over and over again. And that's, what is it? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So, send the patches upstream, file a bug report. There's great business value in that. I'm talking about long-term benefits versus short-term costs. If a patch costs you a half a day to write, I'm sure that if you get 6 more projects in the next, whatever your rate of getting projects is, that'll certainly pay for itself over time. Half a day work, no problem, right? I could give pretty much the same talk about the business value of testing, but we're not going to go into that today. Selling this stuff, explaining to people, you're getting millions of hours of coding when we start at minute 0 of your project. That's really, really huge. But being part of this, not hacking core, giving back and so on, it gives us a more secure product, it gives us a much, much better thing to use, but we really all have to play along. And all of these points actually end up, you have happier, more productive employees delivering a higher quality product. If you can't use that information to sell better, well, let's talk about sales coaching next. But all of these things should help you sell yourself and help you sell Drupal. 10 minutes, thank you. Not gonna happen, but and this is all talking about contribution to projects that you actively use for your business, right? There's actually a great set of reasons to give your devs time to go and be part of and contribute to projects that you don't work with, okay? So this is no way that you can justify this with a billable reason. But if you say, go figure out how Node works, go play, go do a thing, check it out, figure it out, and just let us know, like, do a lunch and learn, do a brown bag, do a something, like, tell us what you've learned once a month or whenever you feel like it. We're all smart people. And we work best when we're enabled and told to go and follow our instincts and be smart, right? Your devs can come back with new perspectives, like a new solution to some problem that Drupal presents, a new way to put things together. And there is a good chance that whether or not you adopt that new technology, you're still getting a better dev back, and a dev with a better reputation, and a dev with more perspective who's probably able to solve problems more creatively. So even contributing to projects that you don't work with on a daily basis can be very, very valuable. So hopefully, management gets on board with all of this after I do a lot of hand waving and put in a lot of examples and data and proof that these things really, really happen. So how do we contribute? How do we start to contribute? Well, here's all the ways you contribute. Go have fun. Chris likes mind maps. This is not really supposed to be legible. This is an exceptionally good projector, and you can actually see most of these. But there's a ton of ways to contribute, whether it's through development, whether it's through sponsorship and patches, and running a hackathon, a code sprint, doing translations, documentation, and so on 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 and so on. So, after a lot of interviews with developers and business owners and marketers, Chris came to the contribution big 4, and this is like the top 4 ways that you can contribute in terms of perceived impact to the on the community and on the project. So, how does this slide work? Sorry. These are Chris's slides, so I never have to look at this stuff. Look, you could contribute code. Ha-ha! There would be no would be no project without the code. So that's something, please keep doing that. Add more features, give us more modules. That supports the use of the project. It makes the project more valuable. Reviews are absolutely undervalued and need to rank in your minds as contributing coding contributors. Please do more reviews. People really pour their heart into patches and forget to pour their hearts into reviews. We need reviews because they're essential to code quality, and we put a lot of value on code quality in Drupal. They're required to get code committed, okay? And there simply aren't enough of them against the number of patches and pull requests that were submitted. So code is really important. Reviewing that code to get it into the code base, very, very, very important, right? I have never done a Drupal project where there was any documentation missing, so that was awesome. It was always completely right, accurate, and up to date with the version I was using. So we don't have that problem, right? Who else has found that? Okay, so that slows us down. That inhibits our ability. Like, I live in upside down, backwards land in that case, okay? But like, missing and inaccurate documentation inhibits us. Identifying your keyboard. That's exciting.
Your laptop.
Right? Let me just pull out the other one. Look, it slows us down. It makes the learning curve much worse. Like, Drupal's complex. Drupal's, hard to learn from a certain perspective, just because you can do so much with it, right? If you then also make it a secret, like how it works, 5 minutes. What are you doing? That's crazy. That's not smart. The harder it is to document something, the worse its UX probably is. So it shines a light on what we need to improve in the project. And listen, frankly, sponsoring events like this, thank you, all of the sponsors. It enables knowledge sharing and it enhances the community spirit. Like, we are in this thing together and we are working together, and it makes our project better. Okay? So, I would also encourage anyone who can to organize events, because it's just like sponsorship. It enables us to be a better project. And you can meet more local developers who you can join forces with. Maybe you find new clients, right? You should contribute to the design of Drupal if you can. UX and interface experience design are really, really needed in Drupal, even though it gets better every time. I would encourage people to spread the word about who we are and what we do and why it's important. I believe all of these things have a great impact, and there's plenty more to do, okay? So, once you have a management consensus that we're deriving business value from contribution, and you have a mandate to make a policy, and the policy is in place, we're just going to talk about solving a couple of these problems. So we want to increase contribution proficiency, change policy, and make time available. Keep in mind, these are the blue slides. These are Chris's, where I'm stumbling a little bit. And this, obviously, we're basically talking about coding now and coding proficiency, and just this one specific corner of contribution. There's all that other stuff going on as well. If you fix the lack of knowledge problem, by offering training and guidance, the proficiency level increases, making these things easier to do. And so there's some really, really good ways to do this. You can have mentored code sprints. You can bring in experienced contributors in-house to do in-house code sprints or mentoring, and get people, in a comfortable environment where maybe they feel nervous about showing up here, or at DrupalCamp to do that. Get people up to speed in-house. It's great, and doing internal sprints and stimulating collaboration will give you a better team that's going to work better over over time, and that will also help your business. And share success stories with each other, and learn to share failure stories too. Like, you know, shit, I got this wrong, then I learned how to fix it, or I don't know how to fix this, you know, please help me. So there's a bunch of exercises that you can do to increase proficiency. And if you do this, right, over time your developers are going to get faster at it. They're going to make more important, more interesting contributions over time. And then the more they do of that, the better Drupalists they're going to be, or Nodists, or whatever project you're working on, right? You're going to get better coders out of this by enabling them to contribute. So let's say the knowledge problem is out of the way. Now what? We got through, I've talked over this a couple times, like, why is it important? We agreed it's important, give a mandate, put a policy in place. And if you're working from the other direction and it's not clear and they say they just go and contribute, you should actually have a conversation about why you're doing it, right? So the one last point, the one last sort of area that we talk about is, so how do you do this on a daily basis? And it was really, really interesting. This is one of the parts of this thinking that we've been doing over the last year, Chris and I, that's the original how a development workflow works and how a Drupal contribution workflow. We had these diagrams that were like literally like 16 bubbles across the top, and it was about 6 deep, and it had all these like it was really, really complex. But once we boiled it down, like basically, you find a problem, right? And you figure out what the hell the problem is, and then you write something to fix it, and then you review that fix, and if that fix is good to go, then you publish it, whether that means putting it on the website, giving it, putting it into whatever that is, right? And when there's a next problem, you go back to that, and if the solution's not okay, then you go back to figuring it out again. And like, does this feel familiar? This is what we do, right? Yes? I know I'm in Finland. Is that what we do?
Yeah!
Oh! You people are great. It's sauna time in 10 minutes, I swear. Oh, my clicker's not going. Wait. So then, look. So this is what you do in the company, and we do exactly the same thing in Drupal, right? There's no difference between this development process, essentially, and we can put them together by finding a problem, figuring it out, then we go and put that into Drupal, have a look at it, do we agree, is it a good idea, these things get reviewed and go around, and then like 6, 8, 10 months later, because sometimes it's Drupal, right? So like, this is right here, this is the bike shed, right here. But eventually, like, it comes into Drupal, woohoo, fantastic, right? But just as important, right, like, you need to share these reviews. Like, somebody writes a patch and gets it here, somebody from your organization can go in and do a first review, get it to RTBC, even if somebody then disagrees, right? So you have this put code in there, put reviews in there, and that's the relationship between your company and making the project better. And other companies from all around, they're all putting in code here and reviews here, and then we all get this thing that's much, much better together. And then we can take, that's still the same one, right?
The thought was going other way around.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, I see. Sorry. Right, so, so this is just simply, hey, Drupal gets better, let's bring this back in-house and use it in our projects, right? And then, and all this relationship, right, can go through all these different, there's some variations and some iterations, but we're both, like, all of Drupal is making your work better, and you are making all of Drupal better at the same time. So the result of this, and I'm really, really abbreviating, I apologize, we could talk for hours about this, especially when Chris is here. The result is contribution is how you work, right? And once you are contributing all the time with how you work, once that part of thing, interact with upstream, file a bug report, submit a patch, review a patch, once that is a part of your day anyway, once management believes, understands, and sees the benefits, experiences the benefits of contribution, the big, scary step is making more time for contribution. So right now we're talking about essentially things that all could happen in the context of billable hours, just about making the product better, making the project better. If you take a leap and you give people explicit time to contribute, like, what if you give someone a week a year, or a month, or as a prize, or some sort of system where your developer gets more than, I'm thinking about this while I'm working on this ticket, right? You can handle more difficult issues, you can contribute more effectively, and contribute in bigger ways that probably contribute to the reputation of your company and the expertise of your company, and give you an admired, recognized, very satisfied developer because she has been allowed to make such a difference to your project. But you really, really have to understand and experience the benefits of all of the regular, simple ways of contributing before taking a leap of faith of giving someone a job like, go do this for 2 months, go do this for a week, here's a prize, something like that. It's a big leap, but companies that have done it have been very, very happy with it. There are great examples out there of companies hiring full-time contributors or making someone a full-time contributor for a certain amount of time. Hussein Begamwala is a great example. He works at a company in India called Accelerant, and Accelerant was like, damn, we wish Drupal 8 would come out. Listen, Hussein, go unstick Drupal 8. Like, do whatever you can. Right? And they gave him 6 months or a year, and he's now India's top core contributor to Drupal. He's brilliant. He won a motorcycle at DrupalCamp Mumbai in the hackathon competition. I mean, and that's hella cool. It was it was a cool motorcycle. It was really amazing, a Royal Enfield. And he's really, really well known. Accelerant benefits from having a superstar contributor now, and Hussein benefits, and now they've got him doing project work and other stuff because Drupal 8 came out. Thank God. Had a conversation on my podcast with John Faber from Chapter 3, and he said, well, we hired Alex Pott to be a contributor because he's just supposed to work on Drupal 8, but our teams can learn about Drupal 8 early now with him. And we can establish ourselves as an early market leader in Drupal 8, and that's what they were. And they got about some really interesting early projects in Drupal 8, and were out of the gate as fast as anyone, or faster, because they had Alex Pott contributing to Drupal 8 full time. And there are lots of these other stories, but this takes a leap of faith. I work for an organization that has about 10 people doing that, and I'm really, really proud of it. So, we talked about why open source is good and why I think that contribution makes good business sense. We talked about unblocking, identifying and unblocking a couple of different kinds of roadblocks. There is lots more detail, there are lots of possibilities, there's lots of proof points missing here, lots of opportunities to be listed and so on, but Chris and I are thinking about this, and we're going to keep talking about this. We're going to start blogging about this, and I'm really, really excited about this, and I'd really love to talk with any of you who have any thoughts or ideas or questions about this too. I am, I neglected to say at the beginning, pretty easy to find online. The Acquia podcast has been off the air for a few weeks. I've had some time off in the summer, but I'm very, very active there. I do about 40 to 50 original podcasts a week in the Drupal open source space. I'm on Twitter a lot. Please get in touch with me. There are a couple of emails. Chris, please tweet at LegolasBo now, Legolas B-O. Say hi from Helsinki. Wish him all the best for his baby. He's been an inspiration to me, and I've been really, really lucky to be able to kind of add, my kind of thing on the stuff that he discovered. It's been a real privilege. And thank you explicitly to here, the organizer of the DrupalCamp, and to my employer, Acquia, and to Miriam, who brought me up here to talk with you today. And thank you for having the patience to listen to me 4 minutes too long. Thank you.